Hey guys, what is up? I'm back and today I'm going to be covering media that has inspired Etherian designs or skins. So there's quite a large variety which Etheria takes inspiration from, and I think this is because if the designs aren't just art that was modelled, then it would suit the individual builder's tastes and preferences. The main concepts which I'm going to be covering today are the base models and exotic and elusive skins. So without further ado, let's start with the first monster, which is Piegan. To be more specific, I'm actually talking about the Piegan line, and I'm talking about the design of its face. So, Piegan's face takes inspiration from Troop Master Grimm from the game Hollow Knight. As you can see, the facial design is pretty similar, but Piegan has purple eyes, and its design differs with its body shape, since it actually has a tail, and the same applies for Scrimmer. Its exotic colour scheme is also a reference to another Hollow Knight character known as Nightmare King Grim, who has an all-red body, and exotic Piegan has the same colour eyes and body as Nightmare King Grim, but obviously seeing as it doesn't have a cape, the body is instead a similar shade of red to Nightmare King Grim's cape. Now moving on to the next Etherian, we have Hedgeload. Now, the Etherian itself doesn't take any inspiration from other media, but the glasses it has are actually a reference to the anime Gurren Lagann. In the anime, these glasses are owned by a character named Kamina, and they're known as his trademark red sunglasses. To be honest, I'm not too familiar with the anime myself, but for anyone who's a fan of it and also plays Etheria, it must have been a nice surprise for them to see in game. However, this isn't the only thing that Hedgelord references, because its scary skin is actually a reference to Fortnite, of all games, and it's a reference to the wolf skin. This time, it's more of the whole line referencing it, rather than just Hedgelord, and I think you can see the similarities more with Edgehog than you can with Hedgelord. So moving on from a rather obscure reference to a somewhat very recognisable reference, I'm talking about Cremona and Outlander's elusive colour scheme. I think the majority of people know what it's a reference to, but if you don't, the colour scheme is a reference to Sans from Undertale, as you can see with the blue eye and the white and blue colour scheme, which is meant to represent Sans' skeleton skin and his trademark blue hoodie. It's a nice reference, maybe not one that entirely fits the Ethereum design, but I think you're able to see the fact it alludes to Sans pretty well in that colour scheme. So the references that I'm about to list now, I did only find out recently whilst doing the research for this video, compared to the other three which I actually already knew a bit about already. So the Ethereum I'm going to talk about now is Mulligant. Well, technically you can include the whole Braybug line, but I'll just focus on this one for now. So, Mulligant's exotic and elusive colour schemes are inspired by the kaijus Batra and Mothra. If you don't know where they're from the Godzilla franchise, and I believe are involved in some of the movies as well. Now, Mulligan's exotic colour scheme is similar to Batra's, whereas its elusive colour scheme is similar to Mothra's. This is another one of those slightly obscure references that you probably wouldn't spot at first glance, or if you're not familiar with the Godzilla movies. Moving on to the next inspiration, we have the Lixic Line's elusive colour scheme, which is based on a Dark Souls boss known as Great Grey Wolf Sith. Now, I'm not too knowledgeable in Dark Souls, and I certainly won't spot this, since to most people the colour scheme just seems to be that of a grey Lixic, but the sword that Great Grey Wolf Sith holds in its mouth is actually inspiration for the base design of the line as well, and the elusive colour scheme helps point out the reference to this boss, making it that more noticeable. Also, Great Grey Wolf Sith is a bit of a tongue twister, not gonna lie. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is the entire Magoo line. Whilst the base Magoo line doesn't have an exact character it's inspired by, the creator of the Magoo line said they were trying to recreate the aesthetic of Kirby bosses, and that's the main inspiration of the Magoo line. Personally, I think that the Magoo line does this quite well, and I could totally see a design like this being present in the actual Kirby games. Its elusive colour scheme, however, has more direct references, with elusive Magoo having the same sort of colour scheme as Magolor, and Mageki and Maguka having the same colours as Magolor EX. Now for a unique one that actually isn't in-game, but I thought I may as well talk about it because it's interesting, and the inspiration is actually Cuphead. So, I don't think this is a well-known fact, but the original designs for Elatoid were actually going to be based on Cuphead and Mugman, with the regular form having the same colour scheme as Cuphead, and the exotic having a similar colour scheme to Mugman. You can even see that they have the little straws on the back of their heads in their normal design. I think it was also originally going to be called Cupoid or Cupoid, but sadly Uglypoid didn't allow these designs to be put in the game, probably because it may have been a bit too obvious as to what they were referring to. The ones I'm going to talk about now aren't major references, but probably minor details you would have missed. For example, Carapinch actually takes a little bit of inspiration from the Pokemon Hydreigon, not by having 3 heads, as you can see it clearly doesn't, but rather the fact that its claws have faces which are similar to Hydreigon's 3 heads, along with the fact it's got its base head and the 2 claws are like side heads. And moving on to the game's own Hydra, Hydra is based off a yokai known as Slim Amanda. I'd say the similarities are actually quite obvious. Now, the final thing I'm going to talk about on this list is probably my favorite reference because of how much I love the franchise. You might realize what it is just from that, but basically, Kung Fu and Kangarid's idle animation barrages are, drumroll please, a JoJo reference. So it's specifically referencing stand rushes. If you don't know what a stand rush is, here's an example.
やれやれてめえ正真正銘の史上最低な男だぜてめえのつけば金では払えねえぜ
So after that, you're pretty much dead or really badly wounded. A minor detail and kind of hard to associate to anything specific, but still a detail I love. But that's all the inspirations I will be talking about today. On my list there are some monsters which I specifically haven't talked about, but I'll be saving them for a later date since there's a lot of detail behind them. Now, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It did take me a while to make this video, so I'd appreciate if you like, subscribe, but for now, see ya.